Commander Hale had visited many planets, seen countless wonders, and met beings that humans could only imagine in dreams. Yet nothing had prepared him for the moment he first saw her, the alien princess. The ship's landing bay opened to a world bathed in silver light and stepped forward cautiously, his boots making soft noises on the smooth metal floor. Around him, guards in shining armor stood motionless, watching every movement. And there she was, standing on a raised platform, her presence impossible to ignore. Her skin shimmered like molten silver, catching the light in a way that seemed unreal. Her eyes glowed violet, deep and endless, like stars captured in liquid. Even from a distance, could feel the weight of her gaze, like it could pierce through steel and read every thought inside him. He had come as an observer, a human envoy, tasked with recording the culture and diplomacy of her planet. But the moment he looked at her, every plan, every instruction he had memorized evaporated. He forgot the reason he was here. He forgot the rules. There was only her, radiant and intimidating, standing with a quiet strength that made the air itself seem heavier. She was tall and slender, yet she moved with a grace that was impossible for humans to imitate. Every step she took was measured, controlled, yet fluid, like she was walking in a dream rather than on solid ground. Cleared his throat. He wanted to say something clever, something diplomatic, but the words refused to form. His mind was a whirlwind of awe and fear. Finally, a single phrase escaped his lips, simple but true. "You're too beautiful to speak." The effect was instantaneous. The princess froze. Her eyes widened slightly and her lips parted as if she had been expecting 1,000 things but never that. The guard stiffened, unsure whether this human had insulted or honored their ruler. Felt his own heart hammer in his chest. He had not intended disrespect, but he had never expected his words to cause such stillness. It was as if time itself had paused, holding its breath to watch her reaction. For a long moment, neither spoke. The air felt thick, heavy with unspoken thoughts and emotions. Realized that he had crossed the barrier that separated him from her world. He was no longer just an envoy. He was a witness to something extraordinary, something that had never happened before. He had seen royalty before, both on Earth and in human history, but nothing compared to this moment. He saw not a ruler or a symbol of power, but a being with real presence, real feeling, real beauty. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the princess's shoulders relaxed. Her eyes softened, and she tilted her head, examining him carefully. Could feel that her mind was racing, trying to understand why a human would speak so openly, so honestly. He knew he had taken a risk. In her world, words were weapons, gestures were politics, and beauty was armor. Yet here he was, speaking from his heart, and it had reached her in a way that no formal greeting ever could. He swallowed hard. His palms were sweaty, his body tense with anticipation. He wanted to speak again, to explain, to apologize, or to continue the conversation, but he sensed that any words now might ruin the fragile connection forming in the air between them. Instead, he stood quietly, letting the silence do its work. And for the first time since he had arrived on this alien world, he felt human. The princess's gaze lingered on him, and understood that something unspoken had passed between them. Something delicate, fragile, and powerful all at once. And in that silence, he knew that this encounter would change everything, not just his mission, but him. Something had begun that neither of them could yet name, a bond that crossed worlds, languages, and species. And as he took a small, careful step closer, he realized that he was no longer just an observer. He was part of a story much bigger than himself, a story that had only just begun. The princess still stood on the raised platform, her eyes locked onto, her body perfectly still. The guards around her remained motionless like statues, watching every subtle move he made. The silence stretched, heavy and strange, almost like a living thing that pressed against his chest. Had faced hostile aliens, storms of energy, and deadly traps in his life, but nothing had ever made him feel so small and exposed as this quiet moment. Every instinct told him to speak, to explain, to say something, but the weight of her gaze made his words falter. She blinked once slowly, almost as if testing him, and realized he could not read her expression. Was she offended, amused, curious? Or had she simply never encountered a human bold enough to speak without hesitation? He did not know, and the uncertainty made his heart race. The air shimmered around her, subtle waves of light moving as if responding to her emotion. It was mesmerizing, terrifying, and beautiful all at once. Shifted slightly, trying to seem less like an intruder. I didn't mean to upset you. he said finally, his voice low but steady. He wasn't entirely sure why he spoke, maybe to break the spell, or maybe to let her know he was human, fallible, and sincere. The words felt small, almost inadequate, but he had no other way to reach her. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then her lips moved, but no sound came out, blinked in surprise. She was speaking, but it was silent, like a gesture, not a voice. Her hands lifted slightly, fingers twitching as if she were trying to communicate something she could not yet put into words. The silence became heavier, yet somehow comforting. It was as though she was trying to understand him as much as he was trying to understand her. Stepped closer, careful not to overstep, and felt the subtle vibration in the floor beneath her feet. It was not fear. It was power, raw and controlled. He realized that this moment was not about words, not about greetings or protocols. It was about seeing each other clearly, without artifice, without the shields that every ruler wore like armor. He took a deep breath, letting the quiet fill him, letting the tension ebb away just slightly. Minutes passed, though it felt like hours. Studied her face, noticing the tiny details, the faint lines around her eyes that suggested a lifetime of responsibilities, the small curve of her lips that hinted at humor or softness she rarely revealed, the way her head tilted just enough to suggest curiosity rather than judgment. He understood then that beauty alone could never define her. There was intelligence, strength, and a subtle vulnerability that he had not expected. She was both goddess and human, and that combination was terrifyingly compelling. Finally, the princess took a single step down from the platform, the motion slow, deliberate, and utterly graceful. The guards tensed but did not move to intervene. Felt his chest tighten. This was unprecedented. He had crossed boundaries he didn't fully understand, yet somehow she had chosen to lower hers. Her eyes met his fully now, no hesitation, no flicker of doubt. The silence between them shifted, no longer oppressive but charged with potential. Sensed that she was offering him a kind of trust, a fragile acknowledgement that he was not merely a human intruder but someone worthy of attention. And in that gaze he saw more than curiosity. He saw the faintest trace of emotion, something almost like hope. He wanted to speak again, but he held back. He realized that the moment was too precious for words. Instead, he simply nodded, a small, careful gesture, and allowed the silence to do what words could not. And in that quiet between a human and an alien princess, something extraordinary began to bloom. A connection that crossed species, worlds, and expectations, delicate and unstoppable all at once. The stars above their planet shimmered, reflecting in her eyes, and understood something profound. Some moments were not made to be rushed or explained. They were meant to be felt, fully and completely, without fear, without judgment, without expectation. And for the first time, he felt that maybe, just maybe, he had found something worth everything he had ever risked. For hours, the alien princess remained silent, her gaze following like a quiet storm. He had never felt so observed, so exposed, and yet so accepted. The palace around them was magnificent, with towers that glowed under the soft light of twin moons, halls carved with intricate symbols, and gardens where plants shimmered with colors he had no names for. But none of it drew his attention, not really. All he could see was her, standing there like the center of a universe he had just entered. Finally, she spoke. The sound of her voice was soft, almost like a melody carried by the wind, yet it held the authority of someone used to being obeyed. "Human, why do you speak so boldly?" she asked. Her violet eyes searched his, trying to unravel the mystery he had become. Felt his chest tighten. Every syllable seemed weighted with centuries of expectation, yet laced with genuine curiosity. "I speak truth," he said carefully, his voice steady despite the nervous flutter in his stomach. "I speak what I see. I see you, not your title, not the crown, not the palace. I see you." The princess tilted her head, studying him. Her silence before had been a test, a shield, but now the walls between them seemed to shift. She moved closer, each step controlled, graceful, like a dancer gliding across the floor. Could feel the subtle energy radiating from her, a mix of power and vulnerability that made him catch his breath. You are different from the others," she said finally, almost a whisper. "Most humans would bow or stammer or pretend they do not notice the burden of my presence. You speak freely and yet respectfully." Shook his head slightly, feeling the weight of his own honesty. "I do not wish to bow or pretend. I do not even know if I am worthy of standing here, but I cannot lie. You are remarkable. I cannot look at you without speaking what I feel." Her lips parted again, this time in a small, almost imperceptible smile. It was not a full smile, not yet, but it was something rare, something human in expression. The guards shifted slightly, clearly unused to seeing their princess show even a hint of emotion outside strict protocol, and realized something important. She was letting him in a way that no human, or perhaps no one, had ever been allowed. The princess took a deep breath and noticed how slight her shoulders were, how delicate yet commanding her presence remained. "It is unsettling," she admitted, "that someone from your world can speak with such honesty without fear of my power, my judgment." Her voice wavered slightly, a sign that this revelation was unfamiliar to her. Stepped closer but carefully, respecting the invisible line between them. "It should not be unsettling," he said softly. "It should be natural. You deserve to be seen fully without pretense or fear." For a moment she simply stared at him, the twin moons reflecting in her eyes like pools of liquid light. Then slowly she extended her hand, just enough to brush his fingers. It was a simple gesture, yet it carried a weight heavier than any crown. Felt a spark, a current of connection that went beyond words or worlds. "You may speak freely here," she said at last, her voice steady but tinged with wonder. "But know this, human, you risk more than you understand by daring to see me as I truly am." Nodded, feeling the gravity of her words. "I understand the risk, and I accept it, because some things, some truths are worth every danger." The princess looked at him again, her violet eyes shining with a mixture of curiosity, caution, and something softer. Something could not yet name, but knew was real. In that moment, the palace, the stars, and the vast distances between their worlds faded. There was only this connection, fragile yet undeniable, and the knowledge that nothing would ever feel the same again. And for the first time, understood that beauty was not just what the eyes could see. It was courage, honesty, and the quiet bravery to stand in truth, even in a galaxy that demanded pretense. Days passed, yet could not stop thinking about the alien princess. Her words lingered in his mind like a soft melody he could not forget. The palace had grown familiar in its alien beauty. The walls of shimmering crystal, the gardens that glowed faintly under twin moons, and the corridors filled with a quiet hum of energy. Yet none of it mattered to him. Every moment, every thought was pulled toward her. She had begun to acknowledge his presence more openly now. At first, it was small gestures, a slight nod in passing, a brief glance of curiosity. But gradually, the walls she had built around herself began to crumble. Noticed subtle changes, the way her shoulders relaxed when he entered a room, the quiet softness in her violet eyes, the almost imperceptible way she smiled when she thought no one was watching. These small, human-like traits revealed a side of her the universe rarely saw. One evening, under the silver glow of the twin moons, found her alone in the palace garden. The plants glimmered like stars, and the air smelled faintly of something sweet and unfamiliar. She was sitting on a low stone bench, her hands resting lightly in her lap, staring at the distant horizon. Approached slowly, careful not to disturb the fragile peace. "You come often," she said without turning, her voice soft, almost shy. "I like it here," replied. "It's peaceful, and it's where I see you truly without anyone watching." She turned slightly then, her violet eyes meeting his. For the first time, her expression held vulnerability. "You see me as I am," she whispered. "Not as the princess, not as a symbol, but as me." Her voice trembled slightly, and could hear the weight of years of expectation hidden in her words. "You don't need to hide," he said gently, taking a careful step closer. "You can let someone in, you don't have to be perfect, you don't have to be untouchable." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then slowly she lifted her hand, and for a heartbeat it hovered near his, uncertain, fragile, felt a surge of emotion. That gesture, so small, so simple, was a bridge across worlds. He reached out and touched her hand lightly, and she did not pull away. Instead, her fingers curled slightly around his, a delicate connection full of meaning. "You're different," she murmured, almost to herself. "No one has ever looked at me like this. No one has ever spoken so openly." "I only speak what I feel," said. "I see courage, strength, and loneliness. I see someone who carries a universe on her shoulders yet still moves with grace. And I want you to know I see all of it." Her lips curved into a small, genuine smile, a smile that reached her eyes. His heart ached with a mixture of awe and longing. She was letting him see her, letting him share a moment of truth in a world that demanded pretense. In that instant, the distance between human and alien, visitor and royalty, vanished. They were two beings, simply standing together, feeling what had rarely been felt before. "You make me feel," she admitted, voice barely audible, "and I do not know how to respond." "Then don't respond," said softly. "Just feel, let it be enough." And so they stood there, hand in hand, under the glow of alien moons, two unlikely souls bridging the divide between worlds. The palace faded behind them, the guards, the rules, and the politics disappeared, leaving only this fragile, beautiful moment. And knew in the deepest part of himself that this was the beginning of something extraordinary, something neither of them had expected, yet both had silently longed for. For the first time, the alien princess was not a distant, untouchable figure of awe. She was human in emotion, fragile yet brave, and understood that the true beauty of her world was not in the crystals or the light, but in her heart, and in the way she had allowed him to glimpse it. The quiet peace of the palace could not last. Rumors had begun to circulate among the council, whispers of a human daring to speak freely to the alien princess, of his boldness, and of the strange connection forming between them. Some called it dangerous, others called it foolish, but all agreed on one thing: it broke protocol, and that could not be tolerated. Sensed the tension as soon as he entered the main hall. The air was heavy, thick with the weight of authority. The council members sat in their ornate chairs, their faces unreadable but their eyes sharp with judgment. The princess stood at the center, her posture straight, yet there was a subtle tension in her shoulders. She had expected this confrontation, and so had. One of the council leaders, a stern figure with skin like polished bronze and eyes that glinted with cold intelligence, spoke first. "Human," he said, voice echoing in the hall, "you have broken our rules. You have dared to speak to the princess as if she were one of your own. Do you understand the gravity of your actions?" Met his gaze steadily. "I do, but I do not regret it. I speak the truth, and I see her for who she truly is." Murmurs filled the room, but the princess raised a hand, silencing them. Her violet eyes met, and he felt the same calm strength that had drawn him to her before. "I am not a symbol in this moment," she said, her voice steady and clear. "I am a being who chooses to see someone as they are. He speaks honestly, and for that I will not condemn him." Another council member, younger and more impulsive, stood abruptly. "You risk more than your reputation, princess. This human cannot understand our ways. He cannot survive the politics of our court. By allowing him to remain, you endanger yourself." His heart thumped, but he refused to back down. "If I endanger her, then it is a risk I willingly take," he said firmly. "I do not come to control, to manipulate, or to play politics. I come only to protect, to respect, and to see her as she deserves." The room fell silent. The council seemed unsure of how to respond. Noticed the princess's hands trembling slightly, though her face remained composed. She had faced many battles, many enemies, yet this human's courage seemed to touch something deep inside her, something she rarely allowed anyone to see. Finally she spoke, her voice calm but resolute. "Enough, this human will remain. If you wish to challenge him, you will face me first, and no one here dares defy me." A collective tension swept through the hall. The council members had never seen her speak like this, not so openly, not so personally. They had always known her as untouchable, distant, a ruler above all. But now she was human in her resolve, fearless in a way that left even seasoned advisors momentarily awed. Exhaled slowly, relief mingling with admiration. "Thank you," he whispered quietly, not for the council to hear, but for her alone. She gave a faint nod, the smallest of gestures, yet it felt monumental. "Do not thank me yet," she said softly. "The world outside these walls will not be so kind. There are forces that will test us, that will not tolerate what we have begun." Straightened, "Then we will face them together. Whatever comes, I will not leave your side." For a fleeting moment, the tension of the hall faded, leaving only the fragile bond that had begun to grow between them. The council might resist, and the palace might challenge them, but neither rules nor politics could touch what had started in quiet honesty and courage. And as they left the hall together, side by side, realized something profound. True courage was not the absence of fear. It was standing firmly, even when everything in the world tried to push you back and daring to protect what you believed in. And in that moment, both human and princess understood that they had begun something worth fighting for, something no council, no rule, and no enemy could easily destroy. The night was darker than usual, the twin moons barely cutting through the thick clouds that hung over the palace. Felt a tension in the air that went beyond politics or council debates. Something was coming, and he knew it. The palace, usually serene in its alien elegance, seemed on edge. Shadows stretched unnaturally, and the subtle hum of energy in the walls had a sharp undertone, warning of danger. He found the princess standing on the balcony, her silver hair glowing faintly in the moonlight. Her violet eyes scanned the horizon, alert yet calm, but could see the small signs of worry beneath her composed surface. "They are coming," she said quietly, not looking at him. "I warned you, human. The world outside will not be kind to what we have begun." "I know," replied, stepping closer. "And I am ready. Whatever comes, I will face it with you." She finally turned to him, and for the first time her expression held vulnerability mixed with determination. "It is not enough to face them," she said softly. "You must survive. You must protect yourself and me. Your world is not prepared for this, and yet you are here." Placed a hand gently on her arm, reassuring her with the touch he had learned to offer without fear. "I am here because of you, because seeing you, understanding you, it makes every risk worth it." Before she could respond, alarms rang through the palace. Red lights bathed the halls, and a deep, resonant sound shook the ground. His heart leapt. He recognized the signs immediately, an attack. Mercenaries, armed and trained, had breached the outer defenses, likely sent by those who opposed the princess's choices. Without hesitation, drew his weapon, a sleek plasma rifle, and motioned for the princess to move back. "Stay behind me," he said. "I won't let anything touch you." She hesitated, fear flickering in her eyes, but nodded. Her hand brushed against his briefly, a silent acknowledgement of trust and connection. Felt the weight of that touch. It was more powerful than any weapon, more protective than any armor. The first wave of attackers burst through the hallways and moved like a force of nature. He fired with precision, dodged with agility, and used his knowledge of the palace's layout to gain the advantage. Each strike was measured, but every moment he fought, he felt the presence of the princess behind him, a silent reminder of why he could not fail. Through the chaos, he glimpsed her standing at the center of the palace chamber, her hands glowing faintly with energy he did not yet understand. She was ready to defend herself, but he could see her hesitation, her desire to let him take the lead, to protect him as much as he protected her. The battle raged, mercenaries falling one by one, but could feel exhaustion creeping in. He was human, limited, vulnerable. Yet with every pulse of fear, every beat of adrenaline, he felt something else stronger: love, courage, and a fierce determination to survive for her sake. Finally, the last of the attackers fell, unconscious or incapacitated. The palace was silent again, but the tension lingered. Lowered his weapon slowly, breathing hard. He turned to the princess, expecting to see relief, and instead found something more powerful: gratitude, trust, and a connection deepened by shared danger. "You fought for me," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "For someone not from your world, for me." "I will fight for you," replied, his voice calm despite the adrenaline still coursing through him. "Always, no matter the danger, no matter the world, no matter the odds." Her eyes glistened with emotion, and she stepped closer, letting her hand brush his again. This time it lingered longer, a silent promise. In that touch felt the full weight of their bond, tested in fire, confirmed in courage, and strengthened by the knowledge that they would face whatever came together. For the first time, the alien princess allowed herself to truly lean on another being, and for the first time, understood that humans could touch something eternal, something beautiful, even in a galaxy filled with power, fear, and distance. The battle had passed, but the air in the palace was thick with the memory of conflict. The twin moons cast a soft, silver light through the shattered windows, and the gardens outside smelled faintly of scorched earth mixed with alien blossoms. Stood in the great hall, leaning slightly on his plasma rifle, muscles tense from the fight, yet his mind was not on the attackers, it was on her. The alien princess approached slowly, her violet eyes shining with a mix of awe, relief, and something softer, something he had come to understand as trust. "You risked everything," she said quietly, her voice trembling with emotion. "Not just your life, but your world, your future, everything, for me." Shook his head. "It was never about risk. It was about seeing you, understanding you, and being there when it mattered most. I could not stand aside when you were in danger." She looked down for a moment, her hands clasped together, then slowly raised her gaze to meet his. "Most humans would have fled. Most humans would have obeyed rules, stayed in their place, and left me to face the consequences alone. But you are different." Her lips curved in a small, genuine smile, the first full smile he had ever seen from her. It was fragile, but it held warmth and trust in a way no words could fully capture. Stepped closer, lowering his weapon completely now. "I see you," he said simply. "Not the crown, not the title, not the expectations. I see the person you are, the courage, the loneliness, the beauty that no one else can reach. And I will stay if you let me." Her eyes glistened, and she took a hesitant step forward. The energy in the room seemed to shift, softening from tension to something almost sacred. She reached out her hand, letting her fingers brush against his. The contact sent a quiet spark through him, a connection that words could not contain. In that moment, the walls between human and alien, between worlds and between duty and heart, seemed to dissolve entirely. I did not know someone could see me like this," she whispered. "Without fear, without politics, without expectation, you have shown me something I never believed possible." Smiled gently, brushing a strand of her shimmering hair behind her ear. "Then believe it now. Some connections are stronger than titles, stronger than rules, stronger than distance. And ours is one of them." For the first time, she allowed herself to step fully into his presence, leaning slightly toward him, trusting him in a way no one else had ever been trusted. Her hands, small and delicate, held his with quiet strength. The palace, the council, the dangers, they were all behind them now. In the glow of the alien moons, only this moment mattered, only this bond existed. Felt a deep sense of peace, a rare calm that only comes after surviving storms together. "No matter what comes next," he said softly, "I will not leave, I will not falter. I am here because you are worth it." Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, yet her smile shone brighter than the twin moons above. "Then, stay," she said, voice firm now, confident. "Stay with me, not as a human envoy, not as a soldier, but as someone who sees me, truly sees me." Nodded, and in that nod there was a promise of loyalty, of protection, and of shared life. They stood there, hand in hand, not as conqueror and subject, not as stranger and visitor, but as equals who had found each other across worlds, across danger, and across the vast loneliness of space. The palace, but standing, seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. Outside, the twin moons reflected in the gardens, painting everything in silver light. In that glow, and the alien princess realized that beauty was not only in appearance, not only in power, but in courage, trust, and connection. The moment was quiet, yet infinite, a moment that neither time nor galaxy could erase. And as they looked at each other, something unspoken passed between them. A bond forged in honesty, tested by danger, and made eternal by the simple truth that one human had dared to see the truth of an alien princess, and she had dared to let him. For the first time, both felt it fully. The universe was vast, unpredictable, and often cruel. But in the heart of connection, hope and love could flourish anywhere, even between worlds.